All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling the absolute bedrock of literally every scientific experiment ever conducted. Seriously, whether you're running A/B tests on a website, digging into a complex financial model, or looking at the latest clinical trial data, you're always playing by a very specific set of rules. And understanding these rules, it's an absolute game changer. It's how we actually separate fact from fiction in the real world. So we're going to break down exactly what those rules are and how they drive the way we discover new facts about our universe.
So put yourself in a scientist's shoes for a second. Imagine you're setting up a brand new experiment. You got to ask yourself, when you run it, what exactly is causing the results to change from one trial to the next? I mean, how can we be absolutely sure why something worked instead of it just being, well, a lucky coincidence? The whole core of science really comes down to pinpointing the exact elements that have the power to alter your outcome. We can't just guess here. We need to know exactly what's shifting behind the scenes.
And to answer that, we have to define our core term for today, which is scientific variables. Put simply, these are all the factors on which a scientific experiment is based. They're the specific conditions, the facts, that actually have the power to change the results of the experiment. Think of them as the moving parts of science. If an experiment is a giant engine, variables are the gears turning inside it.
Let's make this super concrete. Picture a scientist who wants to figure out exactly how water affects a plant's growth. Sure, it's a simple, classic scenario, but it's going to perfectly show us how variables actually function in the real world. And this applies whether you're dealing with botany or, say, behavioral economics.
To figure out exactly how water impacts our plant, our scientist is going to rely on three specific kinds of variables: independent, dependent, and controlled. Almost every reliable experiment you'll ever see is built on these three pillars, and each one plays a totally vital role in making sure the experiment actually tells us the truth.
Okay, first up is the independent variable. This is the specific factor that is intentionally manipulated by the researcher. You might actually hear it called the manipulated variable sometimes. It's the thing you are actively changing during the test. Basically, it's the cause in our cause and effect relationship, the active driver, the deliberate action that you, the scientist, are taking.
Back to our plant experiment, the independent variable is the amount of water being provided. And why is that? Well, because that's the exact factor the scientist is manually controlling and changing. Maybe one day the plant gets a heavy pour, and then the next day, just a tiny sprinkle. The scientist is the one pulling the strings here, tweaking the water levels just to see what happens.
Next, we have the dependent variable. And just like the name suggests, this factor depends entirely on the independent variable. It changes as a direct result of the tweaks you just made. If the independent variable is the action you take, the dependent variable is the reaction you're sitting back and waiting to measure.
So, looking at our potted plant again, the dependent variable here is the height of the plant, measured at specific intervals. I mean, you can't just command a plant to grow taller, right? You have to wait and see how it reacts to the environment you gave it. Its growth directly depends on that water we just talked about. You manipulate the water, and then you measure the height.
This brilliantly highlights the absolute core relationship in all experiments: cause and effect. Changing the independent variable directly causes a change in the dependent variable. Honestly, this whole relationship, manipulating one factor just to measure the reaction of another, it is the literal heartbeat of all scientific inquiry.
But wait, there is a catch. To make sure our results are actually accurate and mean something, we absolutely need the third type: controlled variables. These are the factors that remain entirely constant and fixed throughout the whole experiment. And let me tell you, failing to control these is the #1 reason bad science gets published or companies make catastrophically bad decisions based on flawed data. If you don't lock these down, outside factors are going to sneak in and mess with your results without you even realizing it.
So the really crucial point here is that while we intentionally change the amount of water, we have to keep other factors exactly the same. Things like the type of pot or the specific soil used. Think about it. If you gave one plant extra water, but you also put it in completely different nutrient-packed soil, well, how would you know if the water caused the growth or if the soil did? You wouldn't. By fixing the pot and the soil, we ensure they don't accidentally ruin our height measurements.
Before a scientist ever even touches a beaker or watering can, they create a logical map. It synthesizes the entire experiment by clearly defining what you're going to change, what you'll measure, and what you will keep perfectly still. Mapping out the independent, dependent, and controlled variables from the very beginning, that is exactly how you make sure your final data is completely bulletproof.
All right, now that you've mastered the architecture of an experiment, I want to leave you with a quick challenge.
Let's say you wanted to run a brand new test on how sunlight affects this plant. What exactly would you manipulate, and what would you measure? Think about what your new independent, dependent, and controlled variables would have to be to make that study bulletproof. It's a fun puzzle to think about. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.